Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is BucketPonds, and today we are building a brand new nano aquarium. This is 7 days after it was set up, and it looks great. So let's rewind back to day one, walk through the build process, and have some fun. So here we are. This is a 4.5 liter Better Homes and Gardens food container. This is meant to hold cereal, dry foods, rice, that kind of stuff. But we're going to use it for a whole different purpose today. This was $13.87 at Walmart, and that's more than I would like to pay, but the size and dimensions of this tank perfectly fit an idea that I've had for a while. Coincidentally, these tanks come with a very nice locking lid that has a hidden mechanism, which kind of takes on a vacuum seal. Yeah, very interesting. And it might even be useful for a semi-sealed ecosphere or a terrarium or something like that. We'll have to think about that, maybe a different project in the future. But for now, we'll set this lid aside. I want to leave the top of this tank very open. We want a lot of airflow and a lot of light to get in here. So the purpose of this build is to replicate the success of our original moss tree nano aquarium, which was a similar size, though it was about 3 times smaller in height. So this tank is much taller. And that gives us the added benefit of being able to build a taller moss tree in here. And so that's the goal for today. But we're doing more than that. We're also going to make this the centerpiece of our Bladder Snail Breeding Program, which is something I've had going for a while now. We'll talk more about the Bladder Snail Breeding Program later in the video. For now, we're just adding our sand and our DIY driftwood as we prepare to build our moss tree in this tank. We'll be using moss from the moss farms that we built a while back, and our millipedes are doing great in there. So we'll have to be very careful to rinse and wash this moss several times before adding it to our new aquatic project here. So basically, I am upscaling the original moss tree nano aquarium, and yeah, it has done really well. I'll have a video about that coming up soon. But in the original build, I used no silicone or fishing line or super glue when I attached our moss to our tree branches. We split the ends of the branches and wedged the moss in there. It was all natural and pretty low tech. You guys seem to enjoy it too. So we're going to do that again here. The method is a little finicky. You have to get a screwdriver or something and kind of wedge the stick apart. But it does work, and it works really well, actually. The moss will eventually begin to grow onto the wood as it also branches out and looks more and more like a tree with every day. This is Hypnomoss, and I believe it is Hypnomoss. This is a species I found locally. I tested a handful of different types of moss that we found in our area, and this one was able to survive underwater, so it became part of our BucketPonds collection, and we still grow it now. I love this stuff. But I do want to attach a bit more moss there on the back side of the tree, and we're going to use a tiny amount of super glue for this. This little tube was about 30 cents, so not a lot. Yeah, I just want to show you guys that it is perfectly safe to use super glue in your project. There's nothing wrong with it. I've done it before, and it's fine. It's completely inert underwater. It won't hurt anything. It's fun to go all natural, of course. That's preferable. But sometimes, you just have to super glue a little something here and there, and that's fine, you know. And if your project doesn't come out looking exactly as you expected, don't beat yourself up about it. Just roll with it. Enjoy. Like, I didn't think this would be so dark in here, and I actually have some very powerful lighting right now, which doesn't seem to be helping. So it is a little dark in there, and we're going to add some more hardscape to brighten up the place a bit, to bounce some light around. And it has another added benefit. This is marble, and it is mostly calcium carbonate. And first of all, I like the way it looks. It's nice to have that bright white color in there. but it has an added benefit of acting like an antacid in the aquarium. Just like when you take a Tums. You know, when there's too much acid in your stomach, you take a Tums, it helps to neutralize it, you feel better. Well, the aquarium can behave in a very similar way. As the water becomes more acidic, that calcium carbonate in the marble will slowly dissolve and bring the water back towards like a 6.8 pH. It's very useful. And now I can't back this up with science, but I do believe the snails will slowly chew on that marble and acquire a bit of calcium as well. And that's just observation, anecdotal evidence there. I'm adding some black beach stones in the background. They should add a bit of shadow where we want it, hopefully. And we're going to have to do our first test fill here. Now, that moss does come with some soil and some small particles from the moss farms. You guys saw how they were set up. You know that there's dirt in there. And that's okay. We fix that by doing a immediate water change right here during setup. So before any of our little pets make it inside, it's much easier to do a water change now. And by filling slowly and carefully, we should be pretty good. It might be a little bit hazy in here permanently, and it might also kind of turn yellow from the tannins in that wood, but that's fine. So I'll be including several different types of floating plants in this project. We have some frogbit and azolla fern from our good buddy, Psycho Plant Lady. Congratulations on 500 subscribers. You're going to be like at 1,000 very quickly. But yeah, the tank looks good. I'm going to add a few other floaters as well. So we have azolla fern and frogbit from our good buddy. And now we'll be adding some duckweed of our own. But not just any duckweed. We're going to add watermeal and Florida mud midget. But first, we're going to dose the tank with a bit of crayfish water. And we'll talk about that later. But here's our watermeal. This is great stuff. This is a very tiny version of duckweed, or, you know, a very similar plant. It just happens to be much smaller. And we also have Florida mud midget. Now, I love this stuff. I think it's awesome. It looks like Spanish moss, but it's actually tiny little spiky things that float and act a lot like duckweed with no roots and much more visually appealing. So I'm surprised it's not used more in the aquarium hobby. And we'll also be including all of our microfauna in this project to make a true ecosystem inside. Now, these guys right here are my pride and joy, though we can barely see them at this angle. These are the tiny, white, free-swimming detritus worms that most likely brought you to my channel once upon a time. I don't show them often, but we still have them. And when carefully nurtured, they can form into very impressive free-swimming swarms of tiny white worms. Here's some more. I want to add a good dose of them into this project. But I just think they're so cool, and those are one of the first two species that became part of BucketPonds. You know, it's a long story, but I found some bladder snails, and I found these interesting worms. And that's how BucketPonds was born. Yeah, so they're very important to me. And I'm hoping that adding them in here will help to break down any soil that stuck around from the moss farm. They are detritivores. They will eat dirt and anything like that. But I'm also hoping to use a strong selection of detritivores to break down mulm that will form in this tank. Now here we have some new worms to our collection. These guys came from Psycho Plant Lady, and I am unclear of what they are exactly. I think they're some kind of darrow worm, but that's just my best guess. You know, I have not studied, not yet anyway. But they're very interesting worms, and from what I can tell, they seem to be detritivores. So I want to establish a strong population of detritivores in this aquarium. I want a lot of little life forms that eat dirt and poo and stuff like that. Because we are making this the new focal point of our bladder snail breeding program. On a side note, I figured out that our little shovels are perfect for scooping up individual bladder snails without hurting them. Yeah, that's something I've struggled with for a long time, and now with this little shovel, I'm far more precise. So, yeah, get you a little shovel. But we are adding bladder snails from every one of our projects, from every population that we have in isolation, including some wild bloodline, some others from out of state, Puerto Rico and Texas and stuff. And of course, we're including some of Psycho Plant Lady's snails as well. So just a few that we kidnapped from her samples that are now, thriving as well in their own little jar. But we added a few of them as well. So we have added a large selection of snails from different projects into here with the goal of encouraging them to breed. Now, this is kind of interesting when I feel it's interesting anyway. But, I was thinking about like when something is inbred. When dogs are inbred, they suffer. Their immune systems are weakened. Their lifespans are shorter. Genetic deformities are increased. This can happen with any animal. But when you do something like the opposite of inbreeding, when you cross species or when you cross individuals of the same species from distant, isolated populations, you improve your genetic diversity, you add to your gene pool. Imagine it's fallout and you're living in a vault, maybe 1,000 years. Your people are going to start to change as they are inbred over and over again. And then one day you get an outsider with fresh, healthy DNA, like it's a big deal. But, I wanted to apply that to our bladder snails. And that's what we've done over time. We've taken these different populations that were living in, some aquarium somewhere for years, just breeding with themselves over and over again. Maybe certain inbred populations that were started by a single snail. But we've taken, snails from Puerto Rico and Texas and Alabama and Florida and our most recent additions from Psycho Plant Lady. We've put them together and, their bloodlines trace back to all these different isolated groups of bladder snails. So I believe that is slowly increasing their genetic diversity and improving their ability to deal with, changing water parameters and stress and things like that. So you could say that my mission is to create an even more annoying bladder snail that will one day take over all aquariums in the hobby. One day. Psycho Plant Lady, I noticed that one of your bladder snails here is neon orange and it has a slightly different shell shape. That is awesome and very interesting. I wonder if this may be a slightly different species of 5.5L snail, or if it was possibly exposed to some unknown pressures in the environment in which you had them. Maybe you have crayfish or something. Their shells can change to adjust around things like that. I'm very curious, though, if you'd please tell us more about the tank which those samples came from. So here we have a great look at our first batch of eggs. These are bladder snail eggs laid just above the surface of the water, most likely because the snails think that there are crayfish in this tank. That's a little trick I have applied a few times to get them to breed more rapidly. It also triggers them to make their shells a little thicker if they can. And yeah, it's a survival mechanism when they are exposed to predators. When they smell a crayfish, they freak out. They try to rush and have babies more quickly. And for a hobbyist like me, that's very good. It's horrible to make them scared and afraid, but that's how it is. But you'll see here that one of our species of worms, they like to colonize these types of things. They are not hurting those eggs, they are just clinging to them. These guys like to form clusters up above the surface of the water and kind of hang their faces down there and look for food in the water. So kind of a semi-aquatic species, but they do fine underwater as well. They just like to sit up here and chill like this. Yeah, so that's one of our favorite types of pet worms that we happen to have. They're really cool. But looking at the tiny Ostracods that I was talking about, these guys are in the original moss tree aquarium. And I apologize if the lighting isn't the best. I am slowly upgrading our equipment. But we have two different types of Ostracods in here. We have some very tiny round ones that are sort of like zebra striped. And we have some much larger clamshell like Ostracods in here as well. Yeah, I love these guys. You can see that this tank is flourishing and just look at those numbers. But I'll be adding a few of these into our new project as well. Hopefully we can mimic the success of our smaller moss tree aquarium on this larger scale. So there she is. I am pretty happy with this, you guys. This is about 7 days after setup. Our snails have cruised all around in here. I have fed them a couple pieces of cantaloupe, which is a new food we're trying out. I was trying to make a video doing that, and they just ate it too quickly. So we'll have to try again. But yes, we'll also throw a piece of cucumber in here. I'm trying to offer more foods to get their interest, and cantaloupe has the added benefit of sinking, so that's really cool. But this is our new moss tree. I believe we have been successful. It's still just a little cloudy in here, but I am very happy with this tank, you guys. Um, I couldn't ask for more, really. It's not perfect, but hey, neither are we. Over time, it will develop and, kind of gain its own character. We'll have to come in here and trim some of the moss. I already see that some moss has broken loose and drifted down to the bottom of the container, which is interesting. I was trying not to plant anything down there, but we'll have to take what we can get. Either way, having too much moss is never a problem. Well, all right, guys, I hope that you enjoyed the build video. We've created a very successful project here. I am laying a bit of screen mesh over the top to act as a lid temporarily, but otherwise the tank is beautiful and exactly as seen here on the channel. I'm in love with it. Again, I know it's not perfect, and, I'm not one of those awesome, cool guys out there, with like everything's perfect and everything's beautiful and well lit and very expensive. No, that's not us. So this is us. This is what we do. And hopefully, I'm trying to show things that you guys can do at home too without spending too much and, bonding with your kids and stuff. It's a lot of fun. You get to learn, you get to build, you get to grow and, watch things develop. So I hope that you guys liked the video. Extra big thank you to our YouTube members and our Patreon supporters. You guys are awesome. Clay Wise, Will Bite, Ryan, Boscow, Phillips Fishworks, everybody on Patreon. Thank you so much. I can't thank you enough. You guys keep me going, keep me all excited and stuff, and keep me hyped up, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Please leave a comment and like, subscribe if you enjoyed the video. I have a lot more content on my channel, so check it out. I'll see you again soon with an extra video coming up.